Welcome back. You're watching The Fix with me, Karima Brown. My guest this morning, Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula. Minister, before the break, you were saying that you're going to meet your PRASA team now to look at the trains. Now, we all agree that trains in South Africa, even before COVID-19, had particular challenges. They were often unreliable, they were overcrowded, they were often unsafe. And, of course, it gives you a very big challenge. When you and I spoke last, you gave the guarantee that when trains operate properly, they will in fact be safe. Let's start with what you're going to tell your PRASA team just about staffing. Where you're going to get the staff to ensure, for example, that people queue properly and that social distance happens in trains.
We will look at, they will brief me about their plan, their state of readiness, and firstly, how do they back up that plan? Is there financial support? And that financial support to me must include marshalling, and they must include safety measures, so that the measures you probably see at Gautrain are replicated in our trains. We can't go on with the trains if we were to, even if our rolling stock is old, you can't have omunye postgo munye, people on top of each other. It can't happen at all. Then that service will have to come to a standstill. So there are measures that are non-negotiable, that at the present moment, during the lockdown 4, when President announced lockdown 4, we announced that PRASA will go into full steam for testing. So I'm going to get that state of readiness. Are they ready? Where are they lacking? And how we can actually support? And can we tap on COVID-19 resources to support the operations where they are lacking? Because safety and safety in the trains is totally not negotiable. Otherwise, if trains were to function the way you know them every day, Karima, forget. It's a transmission center of the disease, and that we cannot allow. Now,
Minister, obviously you're not going to be able to do this on your own with the best will in the world. You're going to have to work across departments. One of the big things that you're going to require, you're speaking about marshals, but you are going to require law enforcement in some way. Historically, we've had the railway police. Are you thinking of bringing the railway police back? Are you going to get support from the local, traffic police? Are you going to get support from the SAPS? Where is that intersection going to happen between transport and law enforcement, just to make sure that people actually adhere to the regulations once the trains are open?
All hands on deck. We do have railway police. They've been working, in a way as a static police on all the railway stations. They've not been operating inside the stations. And I'll get a report today because it's part of the things that I flagged, even for the lockdown, that they must go into operation. We've been having a big battle with the security companies in our environment, particularly at PRASA, and their contracts have now been cancelled because they were irregular. And now we're moving in full steam into the PRASA new approach of security. Now we are affected by coronavirus. So we've got to move into short gap measures. And what are those? That include incentivizing people who will do this work, or otherwise it will be police reserves who will complement that part, which is much easier. So a whole lot of ideas have been, but Karima, can assure you, once I'm done and tomorrow, I will be able to showcase how trains are going to be opened, and I will answer the big question of security in the trains during the coronavirus to maintain law and order and safety for the passengers and ensure that there is no congestion. That is
Minister, one of the things that you battled with at Transport and at PRASA in particular when you came in as Transport Minister was, of course, big corruption. Over the last few days, several big organizations that have been key, allies in the fight against corruption, from Corruption Watch to the Katrada Foundation, have come out and said we need to watch that the resources that have been made available not get abused. Say, for example, we're going to have new people doing security at trains because you've already said the existing companies have irregular contracts. Can you give South Africans the assurance that you've got proper systems in place, that we don't have another round of wholesale corruption, given the fact that we have a culture of corruption in the organizations such as PRASA?
Look, the PRASA administrator has been doing a great job, including putting up systems. There was no governance there. There was no management. So he's busy employing people to ensure that there is compliance and build capacity at PRASA, to ensure that, SCM, supply chain management, is fully and intact, do away with people who basically have been perpetrating corruption. He's been doing that job with SIU, and I think he should be in a position to report on that. And he's reported in Parliament when I was with him and given a proper account on that. So his job is continuing. And over and above that, Karima, in terms of corruption, systems, I have said it and I'm repeating it again, should be in place before any allocation of money is granted to my department for purposes of coronavirus. And at the end of this period, I don't want any stinking corruption in the Department of Transport. If any of such will happen, heads will roll. Because I don't expect people, as they give out money and then they appoint people to do this work, to provide this and that, they should be undermining the regulations. The AG is there. And if the AG comes back and tell me that the transport, there's been corruption and there's been mismanagement of coronavirus, I don't have to wait for the day to witness that, because we come from a very difficult period. There's no need to do that. And all systems must be in place, which I've been assured. I'm meeting with my team weekly. I'm getting reports. Remember last time I said to the DG, the question of expenditure, of how much we spend on these things, we must answer. This week, he fell sick, but he'll be coming back in the coming week. We were discussing, among others, reprioritization of our budget and how much support we're getting from Treasury for some of the things we must do for COVID-19, and whether or not there is proper accountability in the department for the execution of this. So from my side, my eyes are wide open, and should anything in the system say at the end that there is a leak, and that leak is a leak of a stinking pipe of corruption, heads will roll, no doubt about it.
All right, Minister, let's just quickly watch a little video where you were in buses to just check the readiness. I want to talk about this mode of transport. Let's just quickly show our viewers how buses are getting ready as we are gearing up for level 3 of the lockdown.
One of the BRT services, bus rapid transit, we are rolling out in Johannesburg, was not compliant. And the complaint came from the citizens. And one of the things that we picked up is that everything else has been done in Rea Vaya that includes the safety measures. Sanitizing has been done, and then disinfection of the buses has been done. But there was a bigger challenge in terms of social distancing inside the bus. And we raised that sharply with the bus company, and in particular Rea Vaya. And we said after our evaluation, we met with the management, together ourselves and the mayor and the MMC and the MEC of Johannesburg. And indeed they agreed that they will immediately take off and address that particular challenge. And as we stand here, that has been addressed. There is a social distancing and the marked inside the bus to keep up with the social distance inside the bus.
Now, Minister, you've explained there that social distancing inside the buses in Rea Vaya here up in Johannesburg was an issue. As you're getting ready for the President to speak, are you assured now that the social distancing has been dealt with, not just in Gauteng, but across the province, or rather across the country where buses are being used?
I expect my colleagues, MECs, and even below them in terms of their work, they are monitoring all safety measures. I've done that in Gauteng with my colleague Mama Bulu, and also with the mayor of Johannesburg, the biggest city in the African continent, the New York of the African continent, Johannesburg. Rea Vaya, BRT service. There was a big problem there. You know, Rea Vaya is like a mango. The seats are very congested, too close to each other to accommodate more numbers, seated and standing. So I got there. They said, no, we only accommodate people seated and not standing. I said, no, that is wrong. Social distancing, mark the seats, block them, and then nobody must be standing in the rear parts. They also have bigger challenges that as the numbers grow of people going back to work, there's going to be congestion, people forcing themselves in, because that is the cheapest mode of transport that they actually have. And then they've also brought in the marshals, queue marshals, social distancing. I've been on the ground. I've seen our people complying. I've seen them coming out of their houses covered with the masks and the cloth around their mouth and nose. I'm encouraged by the response. First and foremost, with our people themselves taking responsibility.
Okay, Minister, let me just come in here quickly. We're running out of time. We've spoken about buses, trains and taxis. Let's speak about air transport. When you and I spoke last, you had written a paper about reimagining transport, air transport, with things like possibly COVID-19 certificates, taking temperatures and making sure that people are healthy when they are actually on planes. Under level 3, you know, whether the president announces it or not, do you envisage domestic travel? I've seen reports that says international travel will only really resume 2021, 2022. What are the South African forecasts both for domestic air travel and international travel?
We are currently doing comparative study internationally. I will be meeting with the AXA team, ATNS, SACA, and I will also be meeting with the rail players, IATA, and so on. And then we'll be looking, among others, with my branch in transport, we'll be looking at the comparative study where transport has been opened up, especially looking at China, domestic and international, what measures that they are following. It's a big challenge, air transport. It's not like taxis and buses where you simply block. You can imagine an airline going to Cape Town, half full. It is very costly. But over and above that, we'll be looking at that, safety measures, and also it's one of the sectors that are really, really in distress in this period of the coronavirus. Now, we will look at that, among others, and we'll make proper announcements in the coming week. Of course, at level 4, we did announce, Karima, to everybody that there will be limited air service going forward at level 3. So we are expecting the president to pronounce on that, given the work that has been done on this particular matter. And our task will be to announce the directives practically. How are we going to foresee and oversee the implementation of that order of the president? If he were to say at level 3, Malula and your team, you are ready, open up limited domestic travel. We've got to oversee and see all those measures, how are they applicable in terms of domestic travel.
All right, that's where we will leave it. Thank you so very much, Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula. Up ahead, the gig economy and the creative arts. Where to next for them in the era of COVID-19?